Unidentified. My Top UFO Cases by Hector V. Bello, March 2018. The Belgian UFO Wave. The Belgian UFO Wave was a series of purported sightings of triangular UFOs in Belgium, which lasted from 29 November 1989 to April 1990. Months after the event, many people claimed to have witnessed the object, but no pictures, videos, or any other type of proof was ever provided. The sightings. The Belgian UFO wave began in November 1989. Reports were filed many weeks after the events. No witnesses managed to take any photographic evidence of the events. Many of the reports related to a large object flying at low altitude. Some reports also stated that the craft was of a flat triangular shape with lights underneath. The Belgian UFO wave peaked with the events of the night of 30th through the 31st March 1990. On that night, one unknown object was tracked on radar, and two Belgian Air Force F-16s were sent to investigate. With neither pilot reporting seeing the object, no reports were received from the public on the date. But over the next 2 weeks, reports from 143 people who claimed to have witnessed the object were received, all of them after the event. Over the ensuing months, many others claimed to have witnessed these events as well following the incident. The Belgian Air Force released a report detailing the events of that night. At around 2300, that's 11 o'clock p.m. on 30th March, the supervisor of the Control Reporting Center, CRC, at Glans received reports of three unusual lights that were moving towards Thorenbij's Glenblokes, which lies to the southeast of Brussels. Glans CRC requested the WAR Wandermeer send a patrol to confirm the sighting. Approximately 10 minutes later, some later reports stated that a second set of lights were seen moving toward the first triangle. The traffic center control at Summerzake tracked one object only on its radar, and an order to scramble two F-16 fighters from Buchanan Air Base was given. Throughout this time, in reports after the event, some people claim that the phenomenon was visible from the ground, describing the whole formation and as maintaining their relative positions while moving slowly across the sky. Over the next hour, the two scrambled F-16s attempted 9 separate interceptions of the targets. On 3 occasions, they managed to obtain a radar lock for a few seconds, but these were later shown to be radar locks on each other. The pilots never reported seeing any of the claimed sightings, saw one of the claimed maneuvers, and never got a lock on any objects apart from the other F-16. The other contacts were all found to be the result of a well-known atmospheric interference called Bragg scattering. At 0:30 or 12:30 in the morning, radar contact became much more sporadic, and the final confirmed lock took place at 04:40, following several further unconfirmed contacts. The F-16s eventually returned to base shortly after 1 a.m. Members of the WAR Gendarmerie who had been sent to confirm the original report described 4 lights now being arranged in a square formation, all marking short, jerky movements before gradually losing their luminosity and disappearing in four separate directions at around 1:30 in the morning. They also reported a low engine noise that was heard and that it seemed to have a stick coming out one end of the turbine, one end with a turbine on it, which many have claimed it shows it was a helicopter they saw. Fake photograph. In April 1990, a hoax photo of a triangular object upon which three lights are visible at each corner was taken by an anonymous photographer. Since then, a man named Patrick M. publicly said that it was a hoax picture by him. Experts say there is no background in the photograph and no element that would allow calculation of the object's size or distance from the camera. Wim van Utrecht has produced a copy of the photograph with devices, a computer graphics simulation method. To reproduce the photograph was developed by a Belgian mathematician, Thierry Veit, at the University of Liège Laboratory of Astrophysics, wherein the apparent shake motion that results in the lights of the craft appearing blurred or out of focus in the photograph contradicts eyewitness statements. This, along with the anonymity of the photographer and fact that the image was not produced publicly until 4 months after the alleged event, brings the authenticity of the image into question. For 20 years, the ufological organization Société Belge d'études des phénomènes spatiaux, or SOBEPS, claimed that this picture was genuine, but in 26 July 2011, in an interview for RTL, a Belgian TV channel, Patrick M. explained that it was a hoax. In September 27, 2016, Skeptoid podcast episode titled The Belgian UFO Wave by the author Brian Dunning discussed the photographic evidence and reported that the single photograph turns out to be emblematic of the quality of all the evidence that characterized the Belgian UFO wave. In 2011, a guy named Patrick Marcal invited Belgian reporters to his home to show them what he and some buddies had done at work one day when the media hype had been at its peak. They took a sheet of styrofoam, cut it into a triangle, painted it black, embedded a flashlight in each corner, then hung it from a string. Marshall still had tons of photos that they'd taken trying to get that one just right, and that fooled the world. Explanations. In 1992, about 3 years after the first sighting, which occurred on 29th November 1989 in Eupen, Mark Hollett wrote an essay about the Belgian UFO wave, criticizing the work done by the SOBEPS, La Veille OVNI Belge, ou le triomphe de la désinformation, arguing that this ufological organization was spreading misinformation in the media. Hallett's thesis is that the Belgian UFO wave was mostly a mass delusion boosted by the work done by the SOBEPS. This mass delusion would have followed Philip J. Klass's law. Once news coverage leads the public to believe that UFOs may be in the vicinity, there are numerous natural and man-made objects which, especially seen at night, can take on unusual characteristics in the minds of hopeful viewers. Their UFO reports in turn add to the mass excitement, which encourages still more observers to watch for UFOs. This situation feeds upon itself until such time as the media lose interest in the subject, and then the flap quickly runs out of steam. In 1993, Pierre Magain and Marc Remy published an article in Physalia magazine in which their conclusions don't match those from the SOBEPs. They also state that the Belgian UFO wave would better be studied by people in the human sciences than by physicists. In the Belgian UFO wave of 1989 or 1992, a neglected hypothesis, Renaud Leclet and co. discussed the fact that some sightings can be explained by helicopters. Most witnesses reported that the objects were silent. This report argues that the lack of noise could be due to the engine noise in the witnesses' automobiles or strong natural wind blowing away from the witnesses. In this article, The Beginning of the Belgian UFO Wave, Jean-Michel Abressard argues that the beginning of the wave does not contradict the psychological hypothesis, contrary to what Sobeps claimed in his work. In an article published on his website in 2011, The Belgian Wave and the Photos of Ramelis Auguste Missin replied to several criticisms by Roger Paquet and Jean-Michel Abressard, and argues that, according to him, the Belgian UFO wave is completely unexplained. Roger Paquet and Jean-Michel Abressard both wrote rebutals to the Belgian physicist's article. In the Belgian UFO Wave Skeptoid podcast episode, Brian Dunning discussed the F-15 chase and reported that the pilots also got intermittent contact with objects, but they appeared and disappeared and moved up and down too fast, including going underground. The pilots never saw anything at all. SOBEPS reported that they obtained radar lock on targets 9 times, but the Belgian military only reported 3 such locks. Upon analyzing the data, all 3 radar locks were on each other. The other contacts were all found to be the result of a well-known atmospheric interference called Bragg scattering. Regarding the wave of eyewitness reports and lack of photographic evidence, Dunning concludes, you read a story in the paper that a UFO was seen over your town a night or two ago. You remember that you saw something you took for a bright star or an airplane and thought nothing of it at the time, but this amazing news story makes you realize that what you saw must have been this UFO. You and I might not necessarily make that connection, but it's perfectly reasonable that a lot of people will, and so they follow the instructions in the newspaper article to send reports to the SOBEPs. With so many articles over a period of years in a small country, it is no great surprise that SOBEPs reported they eventually received as many as 2,600 in all. The 143 reports Missin claims of the original November 29th incident were indeed received, but only after more than a week of aggressive and repeated solicitation in the mass media. It is only much later retellings of the story that wrongly assume that all 2,600 were reported as people were watching the F-16s chase the UFOs, or that all 143 initial reports came independently on that first night. All of the reports were after the fact and were only made after prompting and solicitation by SOBEPs and the media. It was simply a psychosocial phenomenon, which is why there is no evidence and only one questionable photograph. The 13,500 people did all actually see something that they took for an UFO at the time. I guarantee you that more than just a single photograph will have resulted. In books, Vague Omni, Sur Belgique, UFO Wave over Belgium, written by the defunct SOBEPS organization. Secret Machines, Chasing Shadows 1, written by A.J. Hartley and Tom DeLonge in 2016.